Hey guys, welcome back to WillPowered Garage. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the rear timing chain and tensioner on your 2-liter FSI motor. Okay guys, so I had a lot of requests to sort of redo the video I had originally on how to replace the rear chain and tensioner for a 2-liter FSI motor. This applies for Audi, Volkswagen. They're basically the same engines. I just got done doing a cylinder head rebuild, so I figured this was a good opportunity to show everyone now that you could see the entire back of the motor. I don't have to worry about the firewall being in the way or everything else to kind of get the camera angles where you could see everything in place. As you can see right now, I've got everything off. That's mostly because this cylinder head got rebuilt because the tensioner here failed, and this is the new tensioner, and destroyed a whole bunch of stuff. Even broke all the tabs off of here on the cylinder. I had to re-weld all those just to get them back and get a new rear cover for this since the other one exploded. But to get to this point, obviously you're going to want to start with the front timing belt, and you're going to want to put your engine in top dead center. And when you do so, from the crank and from the top cam sprocket, you'll see that there is a timing mark on it, and that timing mark is going to line up with the timing cover. When you remove your valve cover, what you have to do, you will see the notches in the camshafts. These need to face each other for both intake and exhaust, as well as cylinder 4. The lobes for both cams need to face each other in the same direction, as so they would intersect at some point. Once you have that, this is basically timed in a fashion where you could safely take apart the rear timing system. Keep in mind though that with the camshafts in there, there are certain cylinders that are under pressure, and they will want to spin the camshaft at least slightly, so just be mindful of that. Now, Audi and Volkswagen both have a special tool. It's basically a plate that goes across, and it has pins that come down to lock both of these camshafts so that they are perfectly timed. I've never actually had to use that tool. When you're setting up this rear system, there is a mark on the sprocket here. For what reason, I don't know, because it's not actually a timing mark. But you kind of get your chain on here, and then with your cam adjuster, you need to get this notch to line up with the notch in the cam adjuster itself. So here's the cam adjuster, which is going on the exhaust cam, and that pin needs to line up with the notch here. So basically, first thing you're going to do after you remove everything and your cams are set up like this, we're going to install our timing chain tensioner here. And when you do this, I always recommend replacing the hardware that comes out of it. And then from there, we're going to put our chain first on the intake cam, and then we're going to get it lined up here. What I use to turn the camshaft is just a 17 millimeter wrench. So I put it right here in this notch, and now I can ever so slightly rotate the camshaft. Again, Volkswagen Audi has a special tool that goes into the vacuum pump slot. Basically goes in here and comes out, and it gives you leverage to move the camshaft. Again, I've never had to use that, but that way you guys know that that tool is available if you need be. So real quick here on the program, I'll show you. So let's see here. Basically, to that point, remove high pressure pump, remove cylinder head cover, vacuum lines, electrical connections, coolant. You basically need to get that upper valve cover off. Here it's showing the cam lobes facing each other and the notches in the cam there. Right here is the special tool that it's referring to. There is the pin If you are going to reuse the tensioner and chain, or maybe you're just changing the adjuster, this pin here is just what holds it in its unactivated state. So you can just push down on the plunger, get that pin in there, and that'll hold that. But let's see here. The tool again. This is going through the installation. The 2 pins that I was referring to. And this arrow, it basically just saying place the chain into this position first, and that's just to get everything on. But again, it's not referring to any of those marks that are on there. So, you know, I don't know if anyone told you any different, but there are no timing marks on the chain itself or on the camshafts at this point. There's the other tool that I was talking about. It goes into the rear of the camshaft so you can rotate it. But you know, this is a pretty straightforward install for this chain. So I'm going to set up the camera. We'll get this thing installed in real time so you guys can see the steps to get everything lined up and timed, and see that it's really not a difficult job. Unfortunately, I just wasn't able to film it very well the way it was sitting in the car last time. Okay guys, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to install the chain tensioner and guide here. It's held on with 3 bolts. I like to put a little blue Loctite on these just because I don't want them to come off. These bolts get torqued down to 10 Newton meters, which is roughly 88 inch-pounds, somewhere in that range. Alright, here's the new chain. It's got a gold link. Doesn't really mean anything. I'm going to put it on that dot anyway. Get my chain in place here. Alright, now the tricky part is you've got to kind of line up the cam adjuster here, the notch in the cam. There's not a lot of room for all this. Spin this guy down a little bit. Alright, so this thing goes for the special tool there. What I usually do is I use one of the intake head bolts. You know, it fits through there nice and even. And then take my camshaft here, see that it's still off. Go back one tooth. that's basically it. It is in place, in the notches. My cams are both, the slots are perfectly facing straight up and down. Matter of fact, here I'll pick this up. So you can see, again, no timing marks. It doesn't matter where the chain's going. But I like to stick it on the one link there that has the dot. I could see that my cam adjuster is all the way on. But more importantly, if you look straight down into the camshaft like this, this notch is perfectly straight up and down. Same with this guy. I know this is a little deceiving because it's got a radius in here, but on the flat side, that is straight up and down. So both of these camshafts are timed together, and now that my chain is on, I know that I'm perfectly timed. So again, we're just trying to time the intake and exhaust camshafts together. The camshafts are timed to the crankshaft via the timing belt. So this is just on how to set up the timing chain for the two camshafts. Alright guys, now that my cams are timed, my chain is on, my sprocket is on the camshaft. Time to install a new bolt for the cam adjuster. This is a torque to yield bolt. Again, I like to put a little Loctite on this. My threads in the camshaft are clean. This is a new bolt. This is a regular standard thread. It is not a reverse thread. But this guy is going to get torqued down to 14. Excuse me, not 14. Torqued down to 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees. Got my torque wrench set up here. Now, Volkswagen and Audi calls for when you torque this down, you're going to want this plate in place. So, since I don't have that plate, I'm going to use a wrench to counterhold my camshaft. So, there is my 20 Newton meters. And then I'm going to torque this an additional 45 degrees. I've mentioned it before, but anytime you do a torque to yield bolt, you don't want to use your torque wrench to turn the bolt for the torque to yield. You can damage its calibration. So let's see if I can do this by myself. 45 degrees. Alright, my bolt's torqued. My new chain tensioner adjuster, well, my bolt's torqued. My new tensioner bolts are torqued with blue Loctite. We could verify our timing marks again. Like I said, it's really just as simple as looking down here, making sure that these are both straight down. If you have any concerns or are really worried about doing it yourself, just get the tool. As a matter of fact, I think I even found online somebody was nice enough to show how they made a homemade tool with all the specifications you need, with basically just a plate, some holes drilled in it, and two 16mm bolts just to use as dowels to line this up. Super simple stuff. But now that this is all tensioned, I can go ahead, I can remove my tensioner pin, give it one last good visual look. I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on everything here. Again, this thing, when I go to start it up, is going to have a few minutes of no oil pressure. Well, not minutes, a few seconds worth of no oil pressure. And I want to make sure it's got something in there. The other place I'm going to stick some assembly lube is right here on the cam adjuster. And that is because inside this cover, which I'll grab here in a second, there are rings in here. So these are actually like a plastic material, and if any one of these is broken or missing, you will set a code and a fault because your cam adjuster won't be able to adjust properly. So I have a new set of these rings. I'm going to go ahead and replace them. So again, I don't know if you could see, these are the rings. They are very fragile. Now these are split rings. So basically, you're just going to open it up and sort of walk it around the camshaft. Alright, all my new rings are on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lather these things up really well with assembly lube. Because again, if they break, I'm going to have all sorts of issues with my cam timing. And then I have to take this cover all apart, and it's a lot harder to do when it's in the car than if I do it now. Alright, so next is a new gasket. So, cover has alignment dowels on it that will hold the gasket into place. And then we're going to carefully install our cover. Now, I don't know if it really matters, but I like to stagger those rings. Alright, cover's on. Now to the bolts. Again, little blue Loctite. Get all these guys run down. Alright, and these bolts get torqued down to 10 Newton meters. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you found this video a little easier to follow and to see how to replace the rear timing chain and the rear chain tensioner. I know it's a little easier to see it when it's on the bench than when I had it sitting in the car. So yeah, I'm sure that was visually a little bit easier to see. Like I said before, it was a little hard to film. I tried to do the best I could, and I understand from the comments that, you know, it was a little bit left to be desired. But the other thing I wanted to point out, as you can see, I timed this thing without the special tool, but if you feel more comfortable, by all means, there's plenty of places where you could rent the tool. Or like I said, I'll put in the description below how to make the tool. And that's about it. So, till next time, guys, bye.